So the muscle car wars are over. We're at the point where 2024, few of our muscle cars that we love will be bowing out and only one will remain. Car and Driver recently did a ranking of the best muscle cars, and their ranking was pretty shocking. Or maybe not be surprising to some people, but Dodge did not come in first, did not come in second, did not come in third. Why Dodge was not even considered as the top muscle car brand, and some things they could have done to prevent some of the things they have going on right now. So let's go ahead and drop the intro and get into the video. Today's video is brought to you by CarLock, the world's best vehicle tracker and alert system. With CarLock, you'll be able to track your car real time, get alerts of anything suspicious happening to your car, such as your car is starting when it shouldn't be starting, any vibrations. Also, if someone decides to unplug your car lock from your car, you'll get a notification for that too. You deserve that peace of mind, and make sure you get your car locked. I do have a discount code for you guys shown on the screen right now. Get 10% off your purchase, as well as 14 days free trial with it as well with that same discount code, man. Get your car locked. You deserve that peace of mind. Let's go ahead and get it to the video. YouTube family, what is going on? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. If you're new here, we do a lot of car related things on this particular channel, so make sure you're locking in for the long haul. And if you've already done that, want to appreciate you for doing so and being part of this whole YouTube journey. We will not hold you too long. Let's go ahead and get into the topic of today's video. You see the title and you see the thumbnail. So what has happened? This is what we have going on. We know we're pretty much at the end of the muscle car era again. We know there was a whole muscle car era back in the 70s. It went away. Then it came back, and we're at the end of it. This is it. 2023. We're in the last months. It's almost the end of November. November's over. November's pretty much over. December is the last month in 2023, and 2024 pretty much the muscle car wars are over. There will be no Chevy. Chevy Camaro will be a part of that. Dodge is dropping all the V8s. Challenger gone. Apparently, we don't. Who knows going on with that? Charger, no V8s, no Hemis, none of that. Ford is going to remain on top as the only sole surviving muscle car from 2024 and going forward. So let's look at this ranking of muscle cars and see if it's valid, and let's see why Dodge actually brought up the rear of this particular list. And let's also look into some things what Dodge could have did before they had to buy out of this muscle car war. So let's get into it. So Car and Driver recently dropped an article ranking the best muscle cars at a glance, and they had 6 slots for these particular cars. And I know we're saying 6 slots is only like 3 or 4 muscle cars depending on how you cut it. This is the list. I'm gonna put it up on the screen somewhere on here. As you can see, Dodge brought up the last 3 slots. And they're the only car on here that does not have a 2024 model. I know that the Chevy Camaro, I know it says 2024 Z01. They actually do have a limited edition 2024 Camaro that they are releasing, and they won't be building anymore after that. So they're only building like 300 of them, and they're done. So they're not producing the Chevrolet Camaro or anything like that. At number 2, the Ford Mustang. So it's kind of weird how they did this list. They did some individual trims versus the whole lineup of cars. So it's kind of odd that they did it this way, but that's how they decided to do it. Number 2, they put the 2024 Ford Mustang. That includes all levels of the 2024 Mustang, from the EcoBoost, whatever, all the way up to the Dark Horse. And then they put the 2024 Chevrolet Camaro, which I'm going to assume does not include any sort of V8s or anything like that. Maybe just the 4 cylinders and 6 cylinders and things of that nature for 2024. I thought the whole Camaro will be gone, but maybe not the case. But you see they put them at 3 for whatever reason. And 4, 5, and 6 are there's the Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat at 4, the Dodge Charger SRT Hellcat, and then 6 is the rest of the Dodge Challenger lineups. Based on that list, Dodge is bringing up the rear and not even considered the best muscle car. So the big question is, why did all of Dodge models fall so far down on this list of top muscle cars, especially with Dodge calling themselves the Brotherhood of Muscle. There's a couple things that they pointed out that the Dodge cars had or didn't have that the other cars did have. First thing they want to talk about is the price. The crazy thing about Dodge is by far the most expensive brand for having the least amount of upgrades, which is kind of insane. One thing about Dodge, compared to all the other cars, it is the most expensive brand. And we're not talking about just because of the top trim cars. We know Demons and stuff are going for like $200,000, $300,000 with markups. We're just talking about starting out base price for these cars. We're going all the way down to the entry level cars or whatnot. They did a comparison on the Mustang, the Camaro, and the Challenger. Usually the Challenger is cheaper than the Charger, the starting price. And here's perspective here. The 2024 Mustang starts out at $32,500. So that is the lowest trim possible. The lowest trim, no options, $32,500, right? And apparently the 2024 Camaro, which I'm still kind of confused about that, but I guess they're going to have a 2024 Camaro with V6 and stuff. The lowest one, $32,400. So you can see right there, $32,400 and $32,500, cheapest one. When you bounce to the Dodge Challenger, the 2023, we're talking this year's current model compared to those other brands next year's model, $34,300. We're talking almost $2,000 more for a base model Challenger, talking V6, no options, than two other competitors with 1 year newer. That's the cost comparison for the cheapest trim of these three particular cars. But we know most people are not buying the cheapest one. Well, actually most people do buy the cheapest one, but the more popular trims are kind of the middle of the line of trims and stuff of that nature, right? This is how bad the pricing is for Dodge compared to the other manufacturers. With the Camaro, you can get like an SS4 in the 40s, right? With the brand new 2024 Mustang, you can get a GT in the 40. Hop over to Dodge. $40,000 would get you the RT. And if you're familiar with the RT or own one or driven one, we know as far as performance-wise, the RT compares to the SS and compared to the Ford Mustang GT, it's not close for its performance-wise. You're down about 100 horsepower. It just doesn't compare. The GT and the SS compete with the Scatpack, and the Scatpack, we're not even going to get into the price of that. That's even more expensive than that. So that's part of the reason right there. It's part of the reason why Dodge, when it comes to muscle cars and things of that nature, they're kind of pricing themselves out to a certain extent here. The performance, you're paying more for the cars, but not getting as much performance when compared to the competition here. And on top of that, I mean, both Chevy has updated their cars. We can just start around 2015 here, because I feel like that's maybe the best one, probably the best time to start comparing all three brands, because they really started pushing out these cars and started pushing the envelope with these particular cars. Chevy's updated their cars from looks and performance wise since 2015. Ford has updated their car looks and performance wise since 2015 as well. Dodge has not updated their cars from 2015. Now, performance-wise, they have, but not all trims. Well, we're gonna get into that later on in the video. That's kind of the thing that's causing them to get such a low rating. You're paying more for the cars with no updates, while the other manufacturers has updated their cars and made their cars better since that time frame. We're talking a span of about 8 years that this generation Charger and Challenger came out without any updates. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, maybe it's because of COVID. Maybe they won't do any updates because of COVID. Well, COVID would have been 5 years after 2015. So you can't even blame it on that. They had ample time to make some updates and do some things of that nature, but they chose not to. Granted, they didn't really have to. The cars are popular. I say that I think they still look pretty good and all that. I might be a little biased because I own one and bought one, but that is the truth. They do look pretty good and things of that nature. But if you're getting real nitpicky about it, yes, they haven't changed the looks of the cars. They added some more trims and things of that nature between then and now. But they really haven't did a lot of upgrades and stuff to the car to make the car perform better. So what has been Dodge's issue over the last 8 years? Why they haven't touched this car and made upgrades to it like the other manufacturers have? I do think a lot of that is due to how Dodge went about choosing which cars to update. And that's probably why that kind of hurt them in the long run. So let me explain here. With the Camaro, that car got some sort of performance upgrade over the time frame. One of the biggest things is 10-speed transmission in the Camaro. Mustang, likewise, 10-speed transmission in the Camaro, bumping horsepower for them. Dodge didn't do any of that. However, Dodge did do these upgrades and more power for the higher trim model. So that was kind of the difference in focus from the different manufacturers. Chevy didn't do any upgrades at all to their top ZL1. The ZL1 came out, ZL1 1LE, it came out, whatever. It came out with a certain horsepower, and they left it alone. They didn't change it. They didn't do anything. Of course, you got the 1LE package with it, and you got the regular, just the normal ZL1. They always had a ZL1 trim, but that they didn't mess with that car in, and they said, hey, this is it. We're not touching it anymore. Ford, with their top trim car, which is technically the GT500, if we're being honest, they only produced it, for 3 years? They came out with a car, never changed it, and they stopped producing it. They just came out with it limited, right? Dodge, on the other hand, 2015 was a Hellcat, then they came out with a Hellcat Red Eye, then they came, Hellcat, Demon, Red Eye, Super Stock, Jailbreak. Well, a lot of those are the exact same engine with different tunes on it. New Demon. So all of their upgrades have been towards the higher end of the spectrum here. When it comes to the 5.7 and the 6.4, nothing was upgraded, period. And those cars are selling more than your typical Hellcats. I mean, just because of price point. The Scatpacks are more popular than the Hellcats in terms of sales, and so is the 5.7s. And that was probably one of their biggest opportunities that they missed out on. Chevy, they did do upgrades to the SS by, like I said, with the 10-speed transmission, doing all that. Ford really focused in on the 5.0. Bumper horsepower, 10-speed transmission, all that. And the 5.0 is their #1 selling car because that's the one they focus in on. Ford also had a GT350. They came out with that for a couple years. They didn't mess with it anymore. They said, hey, GT350, here it is. We're running for a couple years. After that, done. They didn't try to improve on horsepower on that. They didn't do any of that with that car. They just said, you know what, we came out with the car, we're done with it, that's it. We're going to go back focus on the 5.0. And that's what they kept doing. They kept focusing on the 5.0. And yes, I know it's kind of, and yes, I know I own a Dodge and drive a Dodge. I give props where props is due. I'm not gonna be a blind hater. I'll speak facts as to what I've seen with the particular cars. But could Dodge have done this instead of them focusing so much on the Hellcats and the supercharged engines? What if they maybe not came out with some of those cars? What if they didn't sell the Hellcat for the whole 2015 until now? What if they said, hey, we'll sell the Hellcat for a few years, but then we're going to go back and redevelop the 5.7 and 6.4? What if they did that? What if they focus more on the car that's going to sell the most of? That could have been a viable option here, because to be honest, the 6.4, it's been around before 2015. They had it in previous models, I think like 2012, 2013, and 2014 as well. And not too much have changed from those years with the 6.4. They did bump the horsepower with it, and they paired it with an 8-speed transmission for 2015 going forward. But not a lot of changes happened that. Likewise with the 5.7. Small bump in horsepower, put it with an 8-speed. That's pretty much all they've done with that particular engine. So bottom line, like what's Dodge's biggest downfall over this whole time frame? I think one of the things that kind of hurt them as a brand as a whole, compared to the other cars, and in fact they're going to be one of the ones that are going to hurt the most by going away from V8s, is the fact that they actually have too many V8s. If you compare it to the other brands, when it comes to the Camaro, they have 2 V8s in their cars. They have the 6.2 liter and the 6.2 liter supercharged. That's it. Of course, they have your V6 models and whatnot, but when it comes to V8s, they only got 2 V8s. Mustang, they only have a couple of V8s as well. Well, actually 3, depending on the year. You have the 5.0, then they had the 350, the GT 350, which is, I think it's like 5.2, and then they had the GT 500, which is supercharged 5.2, if I'm not mistaken. But most of the time, they only had 2 different V8s. They didn't have 50,000 million V8s. That's really all they had. Dodge, a lot of V8s. 5.7, 6.4, 6.2 supercharged. Well, a whole bunch of 6.2 supercharged engines. Just V8s galore. Just coming out with more and more of the 6.2 supercharged engines. And because they didn't focus in on one particular engine outside of the Hellcat, ones, I mean, that's kind of why they're in the predicament they're in now. But the good thing about them coming out with so many different V8s, there were so many different options that you can go into as far as like which actual car you wanted to get, right? You wasn't locked into either this or that. You had multiple options. If you wanted just an entry-level V8, it's 5.7. There's some pros about getting the 5.7 over the 6.4 and things of that nature. If you wanted a really big beefy V8, then you go with the the 6.4. But if you want to go top tier, top dog, of course, Hellcat, Red Eye, all that type of stuff on up. So you had options there. Now the other brands, you didn't have as many options there because you only had like 2 V8s to choose from, either the top dog or kind of the one below it, which is kind of the only other V8 on there. Another thing Dodge may have considered doing, if they wasn't going to upgrade the engines, one thing they could have considered doing to make these cars maybe wake up a little bit more and maybe perform better was look at maybe going with the 10-speed as well. Both of their competitors went to a 10-speed transmission, and the 10-speed was a game changer for those particular cars. To be honest, from my standpoint, I didn't hear a lot of people kind of beating their chest over a Camaro or a Mustang until the 10-speed started dropping. Every time a car's racing or something, I have plenty of comments like, oh, if it was a 10-speed, oh, you don't want to mess with a 10-speed. Everybody says that, right? The 10-speed was a game changer for those particular cars. Now, if Dodge would have maybe toyed with coming out with a 10-speed themselves, then, then it could take these cars, even with the same amount of horsepower, and possibly make it, faster in that standpoint. Or they can also maybe got a little bit more aggressive with the gearing by adding the 10-speed, and which will also make the cars accelerate much quicker, therefore making it faster, right? But nonetheless, they didn't do all of that, so it is what it is. But I do want to say this. I do want to, get my personal thoughts on each of the brands, what I felt was good and bad about everything with the particular cars. I mean, car driver has their own thoughts about the cars. I have my own thoughts as well. To me, it's hard to say which one is truly the best. I think with all the cars, the Camaro, the Ford, with the Mustang and the Charger and Challenger, I feel like they all have their pros and cons to the cars. I would say when it comes to the Camaro, I think as far as Chevrolet as a brand, I think they have some really good technology in the car. We actually have a 2022 Tahoe, and the technology in it is pretty good. Chevy's been on top of that always. I actually got the chance to drive a ZL1 1LE myself, and the 1LE package is super stiff. Pause, because like it's rough. It's rough. I'm used to driving a car that has like rougher suspension or whatnot, but that 1LE is next level rough. Like it's a way, some videos back where I got a chance to drive it, and I was using the GoPro. The GoPro takes out some of that shaking, but it was pretty rough when I was driving it. But I feel like that car, especially with the 1LE, it is a certified track car if that's something you're into. Solid car. Of course, the biggest thing is, you don't have any space in the car. Visibility is a big issue in the car. I've driven, I own the Challenger before my Charger, and the visibility in the two-door car is different, but that Camaro, it's hard to see out of that, but they do have some pretty good technology in those particular cars that kind of help overcome that type of thing. Now, the Mustang, my thoughts on the Mustang here, I know Mustangs are going to be the best cars to mod. If you're looking to buy a car and be able to build it, Mustang, the 5.0 Mustang is the way to go, hands down. Dual overhead cam engine responds really well to mods, and the boost levels that it can hold is pretty solid as well too. Of course, with that, you don't have the space in those particular cars, but if you don't need the space, and of course the Mustang might be one you look at. But for us, like I said, overall car, well, not overall, but far as the aspect of actually buying a car and a naturally aspirated car and building up and having that room to grow, Mustang is definitely it, especially for the price point that you can get it at. While I did spend a lot of time in this video kind of dogging Dodge for some of the decisions they made, I will say this about the Charger and the Challenger. The fact they give you a 2-door and a 4-door version definitely caters to a lot of different people. The Challenger is most true to the muscle car from the 70s, but the Charger, having it 4 doors, opens up that market for a lot of people. You do have the space and the convenience of having the extra doors. The only reason I got a Charger, because like I said, I needed the 4 doors in this particular car. But the Challenger itself, coming from a Challenger to this particular car, the Challenger has a lot of room in it. The trunk space in the Challenger is just as big as the Charger. The back seat even in the Challenger is usable for a 2-door car. So that's why I do see a lot of people getting the Challenger when it comes to 2-door cars, because of those reasons. You don't feel cramped in it. It's not a small car. It's extremely roomy. It can fit people of all sizes in that particular car. Now, I know one of the biggest gripes is the cars are heavy. That is true. These cars are heavy. But on the flip side of that, the only way Dodge can really make the Challenger like Mustang or Camaro, like, they would have to make the car smaller. And once you start making the car smaller, you start cutting into the practicality of the particular cars. A lot of people are attracted to these cars because they're big and they're spacious. But if you want to make it light, you got to have a smaller car. There's no way else around it. Yes, you can cut some things out of the car, different materials, but ultimately you have to make the car smaller. Now, unfortunately, the 5.7 and the 6.4, well, the 5.7 is definitely a good engine to build on, but you're starting so far down on horsepower that it's not funny. Like the Mustang, you're starting almost 100 horsepower more, and you can build that one up. The 5.7, you're starting down on horsepower, and you got to do some things to build that one up. And it's going to be more expensive now with the RTs and things of that nature. 6.4, we all know how those go. Not the best engine to build on. Dodge's best engine to build on is going to be the Hellcat engines. They're the only ones that really made for a lot of boost. The 5.7s can handle it. You still got to do things to it. Whole nother video, whole nother topic. Get into a Hellcat to get an engine that can really be built up a lot. And you're talking into like a $60,000 car on the used end, on up to $100,000, depending on, which trim you go for. And those are my thoughts on the American muscle cars, man. Some things Dodge could have done. Let me know your thoughts. Which manufacturer has the best muscle cars right now? I know it's kind of a debate whether Ford and Chevy actually have muscle cars. People are considering them pony cars right now. If we're going to go that route, I mean, some people say the Challenger is a pony car in some cases too. But let me know your thoughts on the best American muscle car that you feel. I know it's a Dodge channel. I try to be as impartial as I can. But I like the Dodge. Like I don't plan on doing any kind of real big, huge engine build or anything like that. So I mean, buying an engine that can do all that wasn't in my plans. If that's something you're considering, of course, another brand or another trim maybe more suitable to you or whatnot. And plus, I needed the space. I feel like if Chevy and Ford maybe came out with a V8 version that had 4 doors, then they probably could give Dodge a run for their money. Well, Chevy did have it with the SS, but they stopped it. Ford never really had one, but they could have maybe did some damage if they did have a 4-door sedan. But that may be fine that they didn't, right? That means they would have had too many of the same cars with the same engine and stuff like that. Something Dodge is kind of doing right now. So that may kind of make sense for them. Really can't talk too much about Ford doing that because they're still able to produce V8s for the next few years to come, while Dodge can't do it. So there's that. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you made it this far in the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel once you're around for the long haul. As always, thank y'all for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next video. We are out. Cut it.